The day Matthew Carter won an abandoned farm for $1. The wind felt colder than it had in years, sharp enough to cut through his worn jacket and straight into his bones. Snow covered the land like a burial sheet, stretching endlessly under a gray sky, and the farmhouse at the center stood silent and broken, its windows boarded up as if the world itself had given up on it. Matthew, a poor veteran with tired eyes and a past heavier than his rucksack, stood beside his only companion, a scruffy old dog named Buddy, wondering if this decision was a final mistake of his already shattered life or the beginning of something no one would ever believe. Before we go any further, if you believe in the silent hero and second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this are for everyone who has ever been overlooked. Matthew had returned from military service years ago with medals that meant little in the real world and scars no one could see. The war had taken his sleep, his steady job, and eventually his marriage, leaving him drifting from shelters to temporary work, always one bad week away from sleeping in his truck. Buddy had come into his life during that darkest winter, a stray trembling behind a grocery store, and from that moment on, the two became inseparable. When Matthew heard about a county auction offering abandoned properties for symbolic prices just to get them off the books, the farm felt like a last gamble, a place where no one would chase him away for being poor, broken, or forgotten. The farm was worse than anyone warned him. The barn roof sagged like a tired back. Fences were buried under snowdrifts, and the farmhouse smelled of mold, dust, and decades of neglect. Neighbors passing by slowed their trucks just long enough to shake their heads. Some laughed quietly. Others openly mocked the idea that a man like Matthew and a limping dog could survive out here through winter. But Matthew had learned long ago that survival was not about comfort. It was about stubbornness. He patched holes with scrap wood, burned broken furniture for heat, and rationed every can of food like it was gold. Nights were the hardest. The silence of countryside was so deep it echoed, reminding him of nights overseas when silence meant danger. Buddy slept close, his steady breathing the only thing anchoring Matthew to the present. As weeks passed, Matthew explored the property slowly, clearing snow, fixing what little he could, and discovering old tools rusted into the ground. The farm seemed empty, stripped of anything valuable long before he arrived, and yet something about it felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. One afternoon, as Matthew worked near the old barn, Buddy began acting strangely. The dog circled a patch of frozen ground near the farmhouse foundation, whining and pawing insistently. At first, Matthew ignored it, assuming Buddy smelled rodents, but the behavior continued day after day. Eventually, driven by curiosity and nothing else to lose, Matthew grabbed a shovel. The ground was frozen hard, each strike jarring his arms, but beneath the ice he felt something solid that was not stone. As the hole widened, Matthew uncovered a rusted metal hatch, nearly invisible beneath years of dirt and snow. His heart pounded, not with excitement but fear. Life had taught him that surprises were rarely good. With effort, he forced the hatch open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cold air rushed upward, carrying the scent of old concrete and seal time. Matthew hesitated, then followed Buddy down, step by cautious step, his flashlight trembling in his hand. What lay beneath the farmhouse was not a simple cellar, but a massive underground room, reinforced with thick walls and steel supports. Shelves lined the space, filled with sealed crates, safes, and containers marked with dates from decades ago. Matthew stood frozen, his breath fogging the beam of light, trying to understand what he was seeing. As he opened one crate after another, reality began to shift. Inside were gold bars, rare coins, historical documents, and carefully preserved assets tied to land, businesses, and investments long forgotten. The truth slowly emerged through old paperwork and records. The farm once belonged to a reclusive financier who had distrusted banks and governments, quietly building a private underground vault during uncertain times. When he died with no known heirs, the property was abandoned, its true value buried and erased from public record. Matthew realized with shaking hands that the secret beneath his feet was worth more than $20 million. Shock gave way to fear. Matthew did not celebrate. He sat on the cold concrete floor, Buddy pressed against him, overwhelmed by the weight of what this discovery could mean. Money like this changed people, destroyed lives, and attracted danger. For days, Matthew told no one. He slept little, guarding the hatch, questioning whether a man like him deserved this kind of fortune, or if it was a test he was bound to fail. Eventually, Matthew did the hardest thing he had done since leaving the military. He sought legal advice, disclosed the discovery properly, and followed every law, every rule, determined not to let greed undo him. The process was slow and exhausting, but the conclusion was undeniable. The contents legally belonged to property owner, and that owner was him. The poor veteran everyone mocked was suddenly one of the wealthiest men in the county. But Matthew did not change overnight. He did not buy mansions or luxury cars. He rebuilt the farmhouse carefully, preserving its soul. He restored the barn and turned the land into a working farm again, not for profit, but purpose. He established a foundation for struggling veterans, funding housing, therapy, and job training, quietly ensuring that men and women like him would not be left behind. Buddy received the best care imaginable, though he remained the same loyal dog, more interested in sunlit fields and wealth. When winter returned the following year, the farm looked different. Warm lights glowed from the windows. Fences stood strong, and the land felt alive again. Neighbors who once laughed now stopped to wave, some ashamed, some inspired. Matthew did not seek recognition. His reward was waking up each morning without fear, walking the land with Buddy, and knowing that the secret found by a dog's stubborn loyalty had rewritten not just his future, but the futures of many others. Just before this story ends, I want to ask you something important. If this story moved you in any way, please comment below and share what second chances mean to you, because your words might be the hope someone else needs today. Matthew Carter never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the cold nights, the judgmental looks, or the feeling of being invisible. Wealth did not make him rich in the way the world usually measures. It gave him the ability to give back, to stand tall without bitterness, and to prove that sometimes the greatest treasures are not found by those searching for them, but by those who refuse to give up when the world is already turned away.